Alrighty. Well, hello everybody. All right, well, you guys all know me. I'm Ari Ostlie. I'm a member here at Unity, and many of you, I hope, will come to call me a friend as we get closer and closer. I think and love many of you very much, and I'm very honored to be here today. So our topic today is how to live in a changing world. Now we're going to start with a little meditation, and if I'm feeling feisty, we might do a little exercise. So get ready, for those of you who are mobile at least. All right. So of course, just take a few deep breaths. I'm loving how much breathing we're doing today. Now I want you to think about the word change. What feelings arise in you when you hear that word? Thrill, anxiousness, fear, delight, maybe multiple. Where do you feel those things in your body? Why do you think that you feel those ways? Perhaps it's past experiences. Perhaps it's something that you think will happen in the future. Now you may open your eyes, and I want you to remember those sensations, feelings, and thoughts as I invite you on a journey of transformation today. I'm not here to tell you anything you don't already know, but to make you think about what you already think you do know. What is change? Now, in the encyclopedia, we're given two different definitions for what change is. One, to make something or something different, to alter or modify. The second, to replace something with something else, especially something of the same kind that is newer or better, to substitute one thing for another. Now, what stands out to me in that definition is the especially something of the same kind. Now, better is very subjective, but we notice that change works in a process. An orange does not change to a lemon, right? What it starts is as a bud, and then it becomes the orange, and then it becomes compost. And then there's some other flower bud that it's going to feed. This is the kind of process that we work with through change. It's usually on a polarity spectrum, so it changes within its given form. But then eventually it becomes a completely new form, right? We're all familiar with the caterpillar butterfly situation. Change is to make something different or to modify, but if that's not possible, perhaps replace completely. And we can fight change or we can embrace change. We can use change, right, to think about the way we live and help create the reality we want. But there's also things that are a part of reality that we must accept. What is currently changing in your world and the world at large, right? Think about what's going on in your personal life. Think about how different that is than maybe a year ago. Your careers, your relationships, society's values, politics, environment, education, and the way that we learn what we do. And of course, our continual process of aging and growing ourselves. This is a very different world than it was 20 years ago. And it's even more different than it was 50 or 100 years ago. In 1929, I don't think they would recognize the world today. Can you imagine how shocking? Excuse me. But we also do recognize that there are some consistencies, right? What are things that are consistent? Does anyone know of anything that is the same now as it was in 1929? Yeah, we still have to eat. We still breathe. People are still fighting the system, right? Not agreeing with each other. Different views. Now, I liked this quote from Calvin and Hobbes. It says, "You know what's weird? Day by day, nothing seems to change. But pretty soon, everything is different." Definitely. We see changes in technology. Even in the last 6 months, right? AI has made huge leaps and bounds. It is generating photos that look so realistic that people can't tell the difference. It's making art. Who saw that coming? I didn't think AI would be making art. I thought AI was going to be, just checking us out in the line, making our lives easier. And it's like, no, I'm actually going to be an artist. Yes, poetry, everything. And that can be scary for us, but it also is exciting. It's something new, it's something different. And we don't know where that's going to lead. Family dynamics have changed. Social dynamics, the economy, all types of things change. Do you know that 80% of jobs that will exist in 2030, they haven't even been invented yet? That's a completely different world. People who are in high school and college currently that are getting prepared for certain jobs, they have a very high chance of having a job that doesn't even exist yet. And that points to a very different world. The future is unknown. Anything can happen. Anything can happen, right? But there are certain cosmic and sociological patterns that we can follow. And the unity principles outline a lot of that, as well as the Hermetic principles. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hermeticism, but Hermeticism is a type of ancient science in which people looked at the world and figured out how things kind of work, right? Where spirituality and science were still one. Now, the first principle of Hermeticism is all is mind, right? A lot like the principle that we said today. But it also speaks to the universe being connected like a brain, the brain of the all. The principle of mentalism stresses that on the most foundational level, everything in the universe is mental. In a certain sense, the universe is itself a living mind, one that is connected to all minds. There's also the principle of correspondence, and you may have heard this phrase, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. That can tell us a lot. We can learn a lot about things that we cannot reach ourselves, that we cannot comprehend in our current state by understanding this law of correspondence. There's the principle of vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. And then there's the principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has its poles. And everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. You can think of hot and cold. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes can be reconciled. I love that one. Because even as I go through this speech today, in my head, in my psychoanalyzing brain, I think of the opposite, like, okay, well, this is also true, right? And that's because all these paradoxes meet. Then there is the rhythm, the Hermetic principle of rhythm. And this was the one I was going to really focus on today, but this morning, as I was going through this, I was inspired to actually list all of these, because all of these are really one principle, and that's the principle of change. Everything in the universe changes. Now, the principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides, its rise and its fall. The pendulum's swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. All rhythm compensates. If one thing goes one direction, it's eventually going to go the other direction. You can bet your money on that one. Now, I can't tell you how it's going to work out, but you can bet on that. There's an ebb and flow of energy in the universe. When one thing increases, another thing decreases. You can notice this in different areas of your life, Because when you lose something, for example, there's a vacancy in that spot. Like when you, let's say, lose a job, right? You're like, okay, well, now what do I do with my time? This opens a vacancy. And that is going to be filled with something new. Something new, a new energy that is swinging to a different direction. There will always be something that increases when something else decreases in a different part of your life. It balances each other out. The universe is constantly trying to balance itself. There's also the principle of cause and effect. Now this one I think we're pretty familiar with. But what's interesting is that a cause leads to an effect, and that effect is a cause of another. And it keeps cycling that way. Even the smallest things we do have a ripple effect. And that's really important for us to know as we want to create the world that we wish to see. And then there's the principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has masculine and feminine within it. Now, I think this is interesting because as people, we think of it just in a purely biological sense. But really, if we think of the yin-yang, it's these two forces that move in everything. If we go back to the law of polarity, we can see this, right? This, right now, I am a masculine force because I am speaking, I am projecting, and you are the feminine force because as an audience, you are receiving, right? Everything works in these two dichotomies. And we all have these energies within us, and everything does that we can utilize. When I sit on a chair, that's the masculine force, and it is being the feminine force supporting me, right? But it also has its masculine because it's supporting me. I don't like to use the term masculine and feminine as much as the yin-yang, but I think that it's something, even though it can be difficult for us to wrap our mind around, that we're very familiar with. Gender is in everything. What is the attitude now that we should have about change? Yes, I so agree. Welcome it. There's hard things about change. Those we love passing. Things we all experience. Being out of our comfort zone. Not knowing what to do at all. Are routines and patterns broken? What is that? I go to that restaurant every morning and now it's a different place. What am I gonna do? Where am I gonna get my eggs? But there's also some beautiful things about change. It's refreshing. You get to tell amazing stories. Those, like the daily word today, comfort, right? You can look back and you can have incredible experiences you can tell others about. You can bring new perspectives. And there's also opportunities for new things as well as growth. But most importantly, change offers us liberation from our chains of mental confinement. We have that opportunity. We have a knowledge that things will change. Nothing in life is permanent besides change. I'm sure you've heard that quote, right? The only thing permanent in life is change. Man, when I first heard that, I was like, wow, that's true. I noticed a lot of things and a lot of things change, but change is pretty consistent. Some changes we're going to agree with, and some changes we're not going to agree with or understand, right? Like, I think even made a great example about war and wanting a world without war. I don't understand why we need to be at war or why people have to dislike other people because of differences. Now, we have to look at our values. How did we determine those values, right? Are they something inherent, or were we taught that by our parents or by the companies we work for or whatever it may be? How did we come to our values? Now, I have a story about this. I had a godmother growing up, and she's still alive. She's like 97 or something, like, wow, impressive. Now, when I was younger, she was very much against interracial marriage. And was this a value that was inherent to her core? No, this was something that she was taught was wrong by others. And I asked her, well, would you rather me be with an abusive white person, or would you rather me be with a black person that I love? And she said, neither. And I was, fighting for justice, whatever. And then I was like, okay. And then years later, she was talking to me in an elevator as I was visiting her. She's like, and I asked her the same question, because things change. But I didn't see that coming, okay? I didn't see any change happening. I mean, you're past the age where, I thought change might happen. And she said, no, I changed my opinion about that. I was very taken aback, and I asked her why. And she said, because I met this lovely couple, right? And it was a white man and a black woman. And she's like, and they were just so wonderful together. And I realized that no, love is love. And I was mind blown that she had this. And this shows how our interpersonal connections really make a huge difference. And that the values that we have really should be evaluated. Now, this self-evaluation process is really important because as we psychoanalyze and evaluate ourselves, it helps us to understand others better as well, to relate to them more. Now, in that, we also have to ask, what can we let go of? And what can't we, right? Are there things that we hold on to that perhaps we shouldn't? I mean, I'm guilty of that. There's definitely things that I can't accept that are very difficult for me to accept. I can give deeper examples, but I'll give you a classic one. What is it with the passwords? You put in your passwords like wrong password. You put it in again, and you're like, okay, change password. And they're like, oh, you can't have the same password. I would change that. That's something I do not want to accept, but I'm forced to accept it. What kind of glitch is that? I don't even know. But we all know about that, right? So we have to learn to accept certain things. And as the AA prayer says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I love that. That's been one of my favorite kind of quotes for a long time, because I always want to make a lot of changes. I do. I'm all about transformation and change. I mean, I'm a Scorpio. But the wisdom to know the difference really is something that I pray for myself and for all of us. To know the things that we can change and the things that we are meant to divinely accept. The reality is that though we perceive life's movements, peoples and places through our own perception of reality, things will change regardless of our feelings. It's the way of the energy of the universe. Buddha had a whole thing about suffering, as we know. He wanted to relieve the suffering of mankind. And he said that attachment to a false sense of reality, Maya, was the cause of suffering. Causing this friction with reality. So I don't believe in this, I don't agree with this, and it causes this suffering within us. But how to relieve that suffering was to release that attachment to our preconceived notions and to have full acceptance. In psychotherapy, there's a term called radical acceptance. And radical acceptance is radical. It's something where it sounds simple, but it's just accepting what is, accepting reality completely. Very traumatic things, hard things, but learning to just accept it. Now, this is the fun part, to move into something more fun. How can we utilize change? How can we utilize it? We can educate and grow ourselves. We can be open-minded to ideas that we have not heard before, or perhaps ideas we have heard many times before. But this time, we're going to allow ourselves to really listen and not put a straw man, a false preconceived notion on top of it. We can be accepting of new ways of living that are not harming others or harming ourselves. We can allow room for new experiences, right? That vacancy, we can allow room for it. And I think that this is a really key one. We can make lemons out of lemonade. Wait, we can make, yes, lemonade out of lemons. There we go. I mean, we could try the other way around. That'd be interesting, huh? Maybe not quite how the process of change works, but you never know. Can't know until you try. Anyway, can you imagine putting, okay, anyway. All right, but I think that finding this silver lining is really key. To use change, to utilize it, to say, okay, well, this is what I'm given. What can I do with this? What can I create with this? Now, this opportunity might not be something I'm looking at positively, but how can I change that into something positive? I think it's one of the biggest things we can do. We can stay aware of the law of rhythm. We can observe its ebbs and flows, knowing that what's here today might be different tomorrow. And that if we're not liking where that pendulum is, one day it'll be on the other end. So you might not be here to see it. I might not be, but it will shift. We can connect to that which does not change. Now, you're probably like, Ari, I thought you just said that everything changes. Well, there are some consistent things. God's love and goodness, that doesn't change. The divinity within each of us does not change. And this is the most important thing, that divine spark within us and the divine spark in each one of you. It doesn't change. That's what makes us all one. It's consistent. And when we see that, all change is welcome because we know what really matters. It's not us disagreeing on this, thinking about this. It's the fact that we are all connected, that we all are divine. And when you see the divinity in each person, it changes everything. One thing we can also bet on, of course, is change itself. We can guarantee that. And what else doesn't change? The truth, which all these things are. The truth doesn't change. We have our unique perspectives. Our outlooks change. All different types of things. But the truth, the divinity, the love, the joy, these things do not change. They are inherent. All right, so now, to close, I'd like you to close your eyes one more time with me. Take a few more deep breaths. And I want you to think about change again. Are there new feelings you have about change? What will you do with change in your life? What are things that you want to change to be in alignment with your highest self? What are ways that you can do that? What are things that you can visualize changing in the future in a positive way for yourself and for the world? Those changes we can all work for in the consciousness. Now, really connect to the source, for the wisdom to know the things which you cannot change, and the things which you are called to change. Thank you. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. Namaste.